Thanks everyone for joining in. And I'm Shreyas, and I'm here to talk about the new administration capabilities for SharePoint Embedded on the SharePoint Admin Center. While some of you might be aware of what SharePoint Embedded is, just a quick recap on what SharePoint Embedded would help the rest of you to understand the importance of the admin capabilities that we're introducing. SharePoint Embedded is an API-only version of SharePoint for any AI apps and agents that use documents, and this is true for both enterprise as well as ISVs. Through SharePoint Embedded, your application can deliver Microsoft 365 Copilot capabilities, Office collaboration, Purview compliance, as well as all of this is an Azure service. For people interested in understanding more about SharePoint Embedded who already don't know, please do scan or go to aka.ms/startspe. With that, let us talk about the demo that we are going to be looking at today. SharePoint Embedded has two key personas. First is the administrator who's in charge of administering the SharePoint Embedded application that is created, as well as the containers created due to the usage of the application. The main jobs to be done includes Azure configuration, Purview, managing permissions, and billing management. The second side to the puzzle is the developers who are in charge of configuring this development environment, the application architecture, anything and everything to do with the app. Let us now look closely into the administrator and what are the key activities that they perform. On Azure, they're looking into the application administration and a lot of billing related activities like resource group management and billing management. They're looking into the container management capabilities, which is the creation and deletion of containers, storage monitoring, as well as compliance requirements through Purview integration. And finally, security dedicatedly by container security management, external sharing configuration, etc. With that being said, what are the different tools currently at the disposal for the administrator to get these tasks done? First is the tenant management, which includes multiple tasks that needs to be done, which is done on the tool Entra. Then we have compliance management, which includes auditing, e-discovery, and a bunch of other capabilities that could be done on Purview. Container management, which is understanding the different list of containers that are present in your tenant, the details of containers, deletion, hard delete, recovery, etc. that is present on SharePoint Admin Center. Finally, the application management, which is including the creation and registration of applications, viewing of applications, and a whole bunch of other things to do with the apps, which currently did not have a dedicated home. But right now, with the new capabilities, all of this would be hosted on SharePoint Admin Center as well. Along with that, a couple of other tasks that would be performed by the administrator is the storage management and billing administration for direct-to-consumer billing. With that being said, let us talk about the problem that we are going to be demoing today. The creation and registration of application is a very complicated process. I am not expecting people to understand the slide right away, but just to appreciate the enormity of activities happening here. Creation today and registration today of an SharePoint embedded application is not an easy process that could be performed by a single persona in a single dedicated tool. It involves multiple personas having to go around multiple tools and having to understand multiple different permissioning capabilities, etc., to get it done. That is what we're going to be looking at today, how this onboarding could be streamlined. Current snapshot of what this is that it is a very complicated process that involves 3+ portals, 3+ distinct roles that's required, and more than 7 steps just to create and register a SharePoint Embedded application, which is the starting point for onboarding onto SharePoint Embedded as a service. This is not easy for any user trying to get into a new service. This just means that there's slow to market time. There's a configuration drift between what can happen on 2 different platforms. There's elevated security risk because developers cannot be given the permission that an administrator have. And there's a knowledge silos and multiple other issues. What would be an ideal experience from this? A singular portal where the setup time is less than 5 minutes, ideally, and a singular role performing it end-to-end. And that is what we are going to be demoing today live on SharePoint Admin Center. Quickly exiting the slide and going into my SharePoint Admin Center. Let me know if my screen's coming through, folks. I'll take that as a yes if anyone can give a thumbs up.
Yep, okay.
Perfect. So we are on the SharePoint Admin Center where I've logged in as a global admin, and you would be able to see SharePoint Embedded as a dedicated section where we're introducing a new page called Apps. Currently, this capability is getting rolled out. So in your tenant, you would not be able to see it yet. I will be announcing when this would be available for everyone. In my system, I'm just going to be showing what would be the new experience that we'll be introducing. Under the SharePoint Embedded section, apps is going to be talking about SharePoint Embedded apps dedicatedly. And we have two tabs here. One is the install tabs, which talks about all the applications or SharePoint Embedded applications installed in your organization. It could be apps built by your organization or by any external organization. Going forward, Microsoft built SharePoint Embedded apps will also be introduced. Owned app section talks about all the apps that are built by your organization. This could either be apps that is registered or yet to be registered. So this is a snapshot of all the different applications that your organization has created. Now, we have a dedicated page where we can see all the different SharePoint Embedded apps created and registered in my organization. Let's now go ahead and create and register a new SharePoint Embedded app. We have a call to action button called Create App on this page, clicking on which opens a side panel where I can have a singular page where I can provide all the information and the creation and registration happens end to end in a single go. I can either create a new Entra app or attach an existing Entra app in my tenant. Some of the existing Entra apps are showcased here. For this case, let's just create a new Entra app. Let's just call it Community. I can attach owners. Owners are nothing but developers in my organization who will be working on the configuration of these apps on a later stage. So let us say that I want to attach a couple of owners, or maybe even 3. At max today, I can attach 3 owners and I can proceed further. The most important step here is deciding what is the billing type of my application. So SharePoint Embedded today supports 2 types of billing. And it is determined by who gets built for the application. Should it be the user organization that gets built for it, in which case the organization using the app would have to set up their pay-as-you-go on Microsoft Admin Center in order to set up billing and use the application, or it could be the owner org, meaning me who's creating this app, who's in charge of the billing. So let us go ahead and select that me creating this app is in charge of the billing. And immediately I'll be able to select if I want to set up the billing now or I want to set it up later, in which case I can come back to this page to set up billing, or any of the different owners I've selected can set up billing at a later stage. So that is when I select the setup later option. For the case of this demo, let us set up billing now. Immediately I'll be able to see the different billing subscriptions for which I have the owner or contributor access to. In this case, I have a billing subscription called HR. I'm going to click on that. Second is the selection of resource group. I have 3 resource groups under HR. I'm going to select RG1. And then there are some advanced settings that is available, which is today Graph Explorer, which is a tool that could be used by the developers to access this container, the type getting created. I can either give the permission as yes or no for now, and let me go ahead and create the app. I click on Create App, which runs the 4 steps sequentially. First, the Azure Entra app gets created. The Entra app ID appears for me to use, and I can copy it to share it with my developers. I can create the SharePoint Embedded app is created as well. Now, we are also given capabilities that if at all there's a transient error appearing because of some reason, we can have a try again, which will retry the process. And now it is successfully completed. And the billing attachment is the final step that happens. And with that, all the 4 steps are completed. And I click on Close. And the system gets refreshed, and community call, the application that I created, is now live. And all of this happened within a span of 3 to 4 minutes in which I was demoing, and which in the earlier case used to take multiple platforms as well as multiple roles getting involved. Currently, this task that I performed can be done end-to-end by just a SharePoint Embedded admin without having to depend on the global admin. We can also create an application that is user org build. Let's say user org. That's the name. And let us attach just one owner at the moment. And instead of selecting owner org, I'm going to select user org, which means I, at the time of creation, do not have to set up any billing. And I can set up billing on, which is the pay-as-you-go billing on Mac. The app gets created. If at all there's an installation error, we can retry. Gets completed. Pay-as-you-go is already turned on Mac, because of which the billing is already attached. If pay-as-you-go was not turned on, I can go to Mac and enable it, and the app is good to go. With this, we saw the creation of two SharePoint embedded application end-to-end. One that is going to be built to my organization for the usage, and second is basically built to the user organization. And in this case, because I've installed it on my tenant, it's built to my PG billing details. And the same applications can be seen on own apps because I have created this application. So I will be able to see community call as well as user org applications here as well, along with the details of owners and everything else. And if at a later stage, I want to copy the details of the billing and other things, I can do that too by clicking on the name, and the detail appears for me to copy and provide it to my developers to perform the configuration action. With this, what have we achieved is that it's faster time to value for you because you do not have to spend multiple days in getting the setup done. Setup is going to be the easiest step possible. And we're increasing the security posture by having a singular role perform the end-to-end activity, and that reduces the dependency.